Store this crane, Board and Mona are hiring. Now what that Board and Mona are hiring is a story John told us last year when we were all working together, when they were in school down in Limerick and they were young lads and they were acting the mess and they weren't listening and they weren't educating themselves. The teacher would always go, Board and Mona are hiring lads. And it was basically, if they didn't get smartened up and start listening, they were going to end up working on the bog. So it was kind of real funny story he had, and it tied in with all the work we were doing on this crane. And if one of us done something a little bit silly, we were using this quote during the restoration of the crane. So it's tied to the restoration and it's tied to my memory of him. So just to explain the quote on the bottom. So what I'm going to talk about now is the technique of lifting stone. And all the stone that would have been quarried here in Ballyknockin and made and carved and shaped and had to go to a building site would have had a hole cut in it for the cranes on the site to lift. And these pins here was the technique used to lift them. Now this one is called a St. Peter's Keys. And what they would do is they would put the hole into the stone, drop it in, and as the crane pulled up, it would spread open wide and hold the block. And that would lift the stone onto the wall. So I'm going to show you one in operation now, and this one is a Greek invention, and this one is called a Féile. So if I can get two fit lads to wind the crane down for me, who's going to do that? Des will be one. And come on.
All right.
It's a nice straightforward crane. This crane is a derrick crane. It came to Ballyknockin in 1950 from Port Arlington. It was in Féile's limestone quarry in Port Arlington. The Fosters went down, they were getting busy at the time, and they were able to buy this crane. So it done an awful lot of work from 1950, and it dropped its jib down in 1980. Now, so the boys are going up with it now. So you can see the way this Féile works here. It's wedging in and it's holding the stone, and that will be lifted up like that and drop down on the building site. Now the guys that put those holes in, the stonemasons, after their day's work of trying to create a nice even surface and making their coins or their fancy work, they would say they would spend a week putting that hole in. Didn't matter how long it took to put that hole in for the Lewis pin or the Féile, because it was worth it, because it balanced the stone. So when they'd be putting it onto their beds on the walls in the city or wherever the job was, there was no straps underneath it, there was no fingers underneath it, which is most important. They didn't want to lose any fingers, and they would just drop it in down on their limestone bed. And if the lads can let it down now. And I'm just going to separate this off, and I'm just going to show you how simple a device this is. As I say, it's going back. I'm not a historian by any means, but it's predating like the Roman Empire, going back to the Greeks. So now I'll just take this out now. Okay, we're good. Now it's just a simple pin. Just take the pin out, and there's a center bar in it there. It's just a straight piece of metal. That just pops straight back out, and out it comes. So it's quite an easy technique to put this in and get the stone lifted up on the wall. So you can have a look at that after when we move on. I encourage you to come up and have a look at these things, because they're fascinating and they're quite safe. People, you'd be looking at them now going, oh, I don't know if that looks good enough, but they never let go. They were always good. So after sort of modern times, and they were able to get drills and drill holes in, they used to put in just a drill hole, and it changed over to a pin called a Lewis pin. Very common still today. They still use them on a lot of sites today, and that would just be a straight hole down, and the pin would go in, and as it pulled up, it expanded the bars out to the sides and held it that way. So there you go. So that's the history of that. Now what we're going to do is just move over here for a second. I have set up limestone, Portland stone, and Ballyknockin